Hi and welcome to my greenhouse. It's November here in the UK, so it's getting a little bit cold now. We've had a few frosts and a lot of the plants, especially the Sarracenias, are beginning to die back now. So I thought I'd just give you a quick show of what the greenhouse looks like as it approaches sort of the full depths of winter. So we can see from the Sarracenias here, there's quite a lot of dead, dying back growth on the traps. But from the autumn growth like these ones, this was its autumn growth. This is still beautifully green and so still catching insects. Some of them are beginning to get a little bit of rot on the traps part way down from just the volume of flies they've consumed. This one especially has been really good. It's one of my old Morris. But it's still showing some of its earlier traps from the season are beginning to die back. So I'm going to start cutting some of these back now. So I'll just show on this one I do. So what I tend to do is so this one's died back at the top, but it's still green towards the bottom. So what I like to do is, I don't like cutting the whole thing off down to the base. You see a few people on videos that basically take almost a pair of shears and literally take all the green off right down. I don't sort of agree with that. There's still plenty of nutrients in this green part here that the plant can recover into its rhizome before the winter. Just like trees do with leaves when they drop their leaves for autumn. So what I would do is I would cut this down to basically here, just below where the brown is. Similarly with this one, I would cut it to below the brown, and then just leave it. That cut piece will then gradually die back as well over time. So I might do this maybe once, maybe twice through the sort of winter period just to keep them nice and tidy. If there are ones that are brown all the way back, like that one there, I'll clean those out just again to open it up. And ones like this that may be earlier ones from the year I've cut back, again I will probably clean those out just to give a bit more air through to the actual rhizome, just to avoid things like rot, botrytis, that sort of thing. So ones like this, again, these have been cut down previously, so I shall probably leave these as they are until sort of springtime. Now there are some traps that have died back completely like this one, so this is dead all the way back to the rhizome. So you could, if you wanted to, tear this off, but I'm a little bit cautious this time of year about doing that because it can open up fresh flesh to the actual rhizome that could potentially get, in these sort of damp and cold conditions, it could get botrytis into the rhizome. So I would actually probably just cut this off at the bottom, maybe a couple of inches up, so come sort of spring, early summer, you can pull it off and tidy up the rhizome itself. But I wouldn't tear that one off the rhizome as is. There are some, like Orophilia, that the leaves do become very, they sort of die back a lot, like these ones, that are very easy to actually pull off the rhizome without leaving any sort of wounds in the plant, and they almost sort of lend themselves to being pulled off really easily. So you can gently get hold of these, and they will really easily just gently pull off. But this leaf is dead all the way, so it's not going to leave a sort of a wound on the rhizome that could get infected. So ones like that, I do tend to gently pull them off. The other thing I found with Orophilia is Orophilia does seem to, certainly in my experience in my greenhouse, the leaves do very easily get botrytis on them. It doesn't very often go into the rhizome, but certainly the leaves tend to get it quite a bit. That's just mottling. I don't think I've actually got one as an example I can show you, but they do tend to very easily seem to rot, these leaves, especially the sort of more wintry type ones. So you might have to cut those back or just keep a bit more of an eye on them. So if we go back down here, we can see that, like I say, there's quite a few that are still in lovely growth. But a lot back here, all of the nice purple traps from that's probably Leuco Red Tube at the back there. She's all sort of dying back, which is a bit of a shame because it was a beautiful tubes and beautiful colours. But even as she dies back, you can still see the red on there, so it's really quite nice. So a lot of my Morries here are still in nice growth. They do a lot of nice autumn growth that they're keeping up with. Some more exotic ones that are dying back. So I will start cutting these back just to keep them nice and clean and tidy for the winter period. We've got quite a few that still have flowers on them with the seed pods ripening. This one doesn't look like it's actually ready to open yet, but I might take it off anyway. Now this sort of browned off, I would start to take these off. Some of them will actually start to split, like the one over here. So that way you can see it's already started to split, so that's definitely remove that one. And if you're into saving the seeds, then now's the time to get your little glassine envelopes out, save your seeds, put them somewhere cool, and then think about maybe if you're in a cold climate, I would sow any seeds I collect this year. I would sow probably sort of mid-ish December maybe. So it's going to get nice frosts and they'll get the effect for their cold stratification. I don't bother putting them in the fridge because I will live in a northern hemisphere, so it does get cold over winter. So I would do that, and then basically let nature do its job of stratifying the seeds, and then they'll start to grow in the spring. And basically that's what I've done with all of these little seedlings here. These were all basically put to the year after, or the same year the seeds were collected. In fact, some of these were actually sown quite late, so these were actually sown end of January last year, so they were actually probably quite late, but they were being collected at effectively the end of sort of November the previous year. But yeah, you can certainly do that, and then I find that gives great success. If you're in a more warm climate where you can't do that, then you will have to put your seeds in the fridge, basically make them damp, put them in the fridge between some sort of damp kitchen towel or something like that. So experience sort of damp conditions for probably at least 4 to 6 weeks, and then you've got a chance to actually sow them and they should grow. So like I say, there's a lot of tidying up I need to do around here. It always looks a bit of a shame this time of year because everything looks sort of a little bit dead and a bit dying. They're not as beautiful as they were. One of the ones that stays really nice, I must admit, is rubra. So a lot of my rubras have been putting new growth up, like this one, and you get that, which is not going to helpfully show you her nice trap there. She's got really beautiful colouring there and beautiful veining, which I really, really like on rubra, all down the stem there. And she is really nice because she does put new growth up late on the season, which tends to stay quite nicely. So we've got, again, got a lot of flavas here that will start to die back. Down there somewhere is one of my Catespiae, I think it is. That's all died back, so I'll pull these out individually and sort of get at them and take the dead off them. Just to, like I say again, to just open up the airflow in the greenhouse, especially as we come into the sort of damp period of winter. Jatatic Sopa, she does put some nice growth up still in the autumn. So again, she's got some nice traps here that she's put up fairly recently. There's even more outside, I'll show you. And also Leucophila. My Leucophila here is absolutely stunning. This is possibly the most beautiful she's been in a long time in terms of her autumn growth. I mean, they are, compared to a spring growth, which is really delicate and tiny, this autumn growth is really big. I mean, the openings are probably inch and a half, maybe almost a bit bigger than that, whereas her sort of spring growth is maybe only 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. So it is quite a difference, and it is beautifully coloured. So I mean, she is stunning, and this is just lovely traps late on in the season. There'll be some Alata redlids back there somewhere. In fact, most of these will be Alata redlids, but again, because they start to die back, you can't really tell that's Alata redlid anymore. You don't see her red lid. So yeah, there's a lot of ones I need to tidy up here. If we pan past all the chilies, we've got a lot of chilies in at the moment. They're not sort of enjoying the cold particularly now. I've had to put the greenhouse heater on where it's been a couple of frosty nights. But they're still sort of doing okay. They're still sort of holding in there. So I've still got a lot of chilies coming off these things. Back behind the chilies, we've got our trays of Drosera capensis and Drosera alba. They're doing okay still. When it gets frosty, I will, and I'm not protecting the greenhouse, I will probably bring those into somewhere which isn't going to get too cold and too frosty. It doesn't really matter if they die, if they get frosty, they will die back. But they seem to come out better the next year if they don't get too beaten back by the frost. Most of the Banata tea forms are beginning to sort of die back now, so they've finished sort of flowering. Most of the actual, or the dewy leaves and things are actually dying back. There's still a few there that are fresh growth, but most of it's dying back now, so I might go through carefully with a pair of scissors and just trim that dead growth off there. It'll be okay. I mean, that sort of growth doesn't tend to rot because it tends to dry out before it gets to the point where it'll actually rot or set in. I say there's the Capensis. They all look okay at the moment. The various trays of small Sarracenias, again, they're doing okay, so they'll quite happily take all the cold without any problems at all. And again, all the trays here with the Sarracenias, they just need tidying up for basic preparation for winter. Back here we've got all the Cobra Lilies, all my little ones. So I've got a stack of these at the moment. Lots and lots of Cobra Lilies back here. Lots and lots of little offshoots on the Cobra Lilies back here that are doing really nicely. Even more over here. So they've been really prolific, and there's another little tray of them there, which were the Stollens that I sort of poked into the ground and pinned down with some little hoops of metal wire. And they've now rooted and they've started producing little traps and everything. So again, I'll pop those up again next year. But again, they are pretty tough and pretty hardy, so they'll survive no problem at all. More plants. This is my Sarracenia. This one's done really, really well this year. I was actually feeding her and she's really responded to that. I've been feeding her flies and crawling insects. Crawling insects seem to be the best thing to give to her, because once they sort of go in, they tend to crawl back and crawl down into the traps, which is what's intended. So I think she's more of a crawling insect than a flying fly sort of catcher there. And also I've got quite a few of my purpureas, the little ones I've got here, and another couple of really nice purpureas here. And again, then my green anthracene-free purpurea back there. Again, of all the ones I've got, purpurea is the toughest, I think. She seems to survive pretty much anything. You know, the one I had outside in the patio when it got down to -8, yeah, there was water frozen inside all the traps, but they all survived. They all look perfect still. They didn't sort of die back or suffer from it at all. My tray of dismal remnants of my Venus flytraps is here. I will probably try and protect some of these, some really brutal cold. Last year was a real eye-opener that -8 Venus flytraps don't like -8. Up to then, I'd never really had a problem with frost. I'd maybe lost 1 or 2 of the several hundred I had, but I'd never really had a major loss, whereas -8 pretty much wiped every single one of them out. If you're interested, there's my lemongrass plant, which is doing really well, and also some ginger plants. They don't really like the cold, so they are going to at some point have to come in or basically just be used up for the winter. But just take you outside. Hopefully there won't be too much wind noise. So these are all my trays of Sarracenias outside. They've all a bit blown around from the wind. It's been really windy recently. A lot of the traps have died back and started to break open. So I need to again tidy these up, but we're still getting new growth. This is ridiculous. It's basically mid-November and we're getting new growth off. This is rubra, and she's got some really nice new growth here, although a lot of her traps are full of water, which does cause them to flop over quite a bit. So a lot of them are falling over because they're just filled with water, and then when the wind gets behind them, they sort of do topple over quite a bit. Again, we've still got some lovely new growth coming from Sopa. Here's one of my outside Lucos. It's doing all right, but this one's, I think it might have been a bird or something, has been pecking to get out the flies inside. So it's actually been pecking through the thing. But I think it's starting to die back anyway. A load of Alatas and various other ones. These are all dying back, so I shall start cutting these back, and I shall probably take these inside so they're not so wet, because we've had a lot of rain recently. I did lose quite a few more sensitive Sarracenias last year, not necessarily because of the wet in itself or the cold in itself, but the fact that it was the wet and the cold together. And again, got a lot of Sopas here that are still doing really nicely. Load of little seedlings here, and some more, and some more. So there you go. So I hope that was an interesting tour. I shall get on with now tidying up my Sarracenias, maybe tidying up a few of the Venus flytraps, and maybe a few of the sponges there, the Bonatas, just so they're sort of winter ready. I've got some seeds to collect from the Sarracenias, and then hopefully they'll enjoy the cold of the winter, because they're pretty much tough and they don't really mind it. So yeah, if you like this sort of content, please give me a thumbs up and a like. Do leave any comments you want to, any questions, and I'll try and answer them. And yeah, thank you for watching.